Greetings. Before introducing our show and its participants, whom many of you watching will immediately recognize, allow me to introduce myself. My name is James Anito. I'm director and co-founder of Daemonologie. It's not my day job, but it's my avocation. At times, my passion, and I can accurately state my mission. For this special and first of its kind production, we are combining New England anomalies research, that is Ghost Are Near, with Duo. I feel the scope of our topic warrants something special, hence this unique collaboration. In a real sense, the story we'll share with you has been 47 years in the making. By my perspective, and for those who have a sincere interest in paranormal exploration, it needs to be told. Please feel welcome to contribute your comments and questions to us on the message board we've prepared. Thank you for joining us. In rural Harrisville, a village in the town of Burrillville, Rhode Island, there is situated a farmhouse which has stood in place for the past 284 years. It is now famously referred to as the Conjuring House due to an immensely popular motion picture released to theaters in 2013. Said film is based on an actual occurrence, the intercession at the parents' family home by renowned ghost hunting couple Ed and Lorraine Warren. The story as it is depicted in the movie is widely accepted by paranormal enthusiasts as factual. Often truth is stranger than yet not so well received as is fiction. Much legend surrounds the murky history of that colonial era farmhouse. But what has careful and objective research revealed? Is that house truly haunted? Our audience is invited to hear an account given by twin brothers who, along with another team member, organized the first paranormal investigation of the parents' home during August and September of 1973. It is my pleasure to present to you authors and respected authorities to their own right, Carl and Keith Johnson. Gentlemen, hello.
Hello there, James. Hello. Thank you.
Oh, definitely.
Well said.
Thank you. Thank you. It was well written.
Thank you.
So tonight we have something that you guys have necessarily done in a small collective. You've told your story, especially now the Conjuring movie came out in 2013. Mm-hmm. You guys have in small ways gotten your story out there. Doing library lectures around Rhode Island, New England. Maybe
it's trickling out there, yes.
Maybe further beyond. But this is the first time that the masses, the online social media, the world will hear the Johnson story. Pyro, the team Pyro, what was involved in making The Conjuring what it is today. Because if you think about it, and this is where your story is important, that motion picture maybe have never happened, maybe never created the Conjuring universe if it wasn't for you guys and finding that case, or maybe it finding you. So tonight, for the listeners, of course, as you said, you guys are the first investigators. We are not joined by the third member, but you guys are two individuals that continue in paranormal research to this day. What, 47 years later?
It is now, yeah.
So it is something I hear all the time, misconceptions about the Conjuring House. And I always say, well, hold on. Like you said, the movie is not always what you think it is to be. So there is, of course, a non-fictional aspect to it. And there's also a fictional aspect to that movie. And I think you guys coming together tonight, and thank you for having me on with this as well, moderating it.
It's our pleasure.
But I want you to guys tell your stories. I know there's a lot of caveats and a lot of mythical things, misconceptions.
Inaccuracies, let's say.
Definitely. So I want you guys to have the floor tonight. I will be interjecting in some questions here or there, maybe if something I feel like that I know that maybe the masses don't know, that will kind of expound upon that specific topic you're talking about in your story. But for people that are listening and our listeners right now, we have quite a bunch of them. We're at like 100 listeners right now. Thank you very much. So please, one thing you guys can do for us is share, like, and at the end of this topic, this discussion that we'll have, the story that we will hear that will unfold before us, we will answer questions, more so these guys as they are the original investigators of The Conjuring. But if I can add any conjecture to it, anything that I can roll upon it, then I will as well. I've been to the house, I've investigated it quite a few times, and I have an opinion on it. But that's not why we're here tonight. We're here to hear your story. So, gentlemen, who would like to start?
Well, I could say that this saga all began, which led to the franchise eventually, 40 years later. It had its beginnings when Keith and I attended a lecture given at Rhode Island College in Providence, and the lecturers were noted ghost hunting couple Ed and Lorraine Warren. And of course, I'd heard about Ed and Lorraine. I didn't want to miss that chance. So Keith and I showed up at Roberts Hall at Rhode Island College and listened to a fascinating lecture. What I didn't know was that I was going to become part of the lecture because they had some audience participation and I had answered several questions and raised my hand with a question. So Ed Warren said, "Come up here, young man." I was young then. And he said, "Come on up there," and so I was talking with him on stage. And what an opportunity. I remember listening to Ed and say, "That's who I want to be when I grow up." So it was just a fascinating lecture. There is a scene in The Conjuring. Of course, we're talking about much of that movie is fabled, but there is a scene that actually made me nostalgic. Several scenes did. There is a shot of Ed and Lorraine Warren, portrayed by Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga, and they are lecturing in a hall. And Lorraine Warren, the elegant Lorraine Warren, actually has a cameo in that scene, and her daughter Judy are seen in that shot. And it staged the encounter, the first meeting between Carolyn Perrin and the Warrens. And when you see those actors portraying the Warrens, then you were seeing Ed and Lorraine, because that's how they were. They were charming, they were funny. It was a pleasure to watch them and listen to them. And they had a banter between them. It was just unique to them. It was their own thing. So that was a good retelling, that section of the movie. And I enjoyed the whole film. I didn't see it as factual by any means. It's not a documentary. It's an entertainment.
A lot of the names were real.
The names were real people, yeah. Not ours. I didn't have ours in it, but it was just an entertainment. I didn't mind seeing it. I enjoyed it. And then Keith has told me about it. "Oh, come on, we got to go see the original team. Should go there and see the movie The Conjuring, because we were responsible for this." I said, "I don't know, Keith. It's going to be so much fiction. The whole thing's going to be predicated on a true happening, but it's going to be fictionalized." But I enjoyed it. Enjoyed that film. So we met Ed and Lorraine Warren, and that was April 1972. What do you know the date?
April 17th, Thursday.
17th Thursday. You probably know the moon cycle too. No, I know you do. So
3/4.
okay, and he's a walking encyclopedia. So we meet Ed and Lorraine and talking to them afterwards. And because I had become part of the lecture, inadvertently, a minor part, I was approached by members of a team who had sponsored that lecture, organized it. It was based at Rhode Island College. This was PIRO, Parapsychological Investigatory and Research Organization, PIRO. And two of their members came up to me and invited me to join. Said, "Would you consider membership in our group?" And we have a meeting on Tuesday. So, and of course, Keith was invited as well.
They were surprised to see we're identical twins.
Yeah, well, that made us kind of outstanding. I was always the evil twin, and you were the angelic twin.
I'll agree on that.
Holds true. Oh, so we go to the meeting, and we were inducted into PIRO, and it was fun. In fact,
that's the first paranormal related organization we were officially members of.
Actual group, yeah.
17 years old.
And that was the night I met. In fact, the first person I met in the hall was Donna Eisenstadt, and she was case manager, president of PIRO. So we had a meeting in Roberts Hall, and one of the meeting rooms. And PIRO had been investigating exterior cases, going to sites. There's a famous, infamous chapel that was on Brown Avenue in Johnston, Rhode Island, and that was a site they went to. I heard all about that. They'd just been there. Heard organ music playing from this ruined church. And all the witnesses, all those who were part of that investigation heard it. So I figured this is a pretty astute team. They seem well organized. They weren't widely recognized on campus, but they were the only paranormal group at Rhode Island College.
Mm-hmm.
So we're doing this, and eventually it was decided that we wanted to investigate houses, go to residences, see if we could help people understand what was happening in their homes, do actual paranormal investigating.
Yeah, so far we had just concentrated on basically novelty cases, places to go. But I mean,
and there are plenty of those in Rhode Island.
But you and I, of course, it wasn't our first brush with the paranormal. I mean,
no, Keith and I were interested in paranormal happenings because essentially we grew up in a haunted house.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that the activity in our house was just as frequent, just as interesting, sometimes just as severe as what transpired in the Round Top farmhouse in Harrisville. We had plenty of stuff going on. And actually, Edward and Lorraine Warren had come to my parents' house because we got to know them. And I told them we had paranormal happenings there. They had dinner with my family twice. Very pleasant socializing and then paranormal investigating. So I actually went on a few cases with Ed and Lorraine. I was fortunate to do that. Okay, so back to Pyro. We decided as a team that we wanted to broach some resident cases. And to that effect, my brother placed an ad in a local periodical, North County Observer paper, advertising Pyro, that we were a paranormal group. We would come out and investigate your house upon request, would not charge for our services, and try to make sense of what was happening in your home.
I thought it would just be laughed at, but maybe it's worth a chance.
And that was worth being laughed at for that, yeah. Mm-hmm. And then 3 weeks to the day after Keith had that ad published, notifying people of Pyro, well, we had a response. And who responded? Who was the first one to answer that ad?
Mrs. Carolyn Perrin, Harrisville, Rhode Island.
Oh, yes. And she extended an invitation through her and her husband, Roger, for us to come to their farmhouse in Harrisville and perform a paranormal investigation.
And of course, we met with her first at Rhode Island College.
Yeah.
She told us her complete story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and found out what was really happening. It really sounded worthwhile going there.
Mm-hmm.
So we went to Harrisville, and I remember meeting Mrs. Perrin at the door, and I told her, she was a little apprehensive looking. Boy, I could feel something was up when we pulled up that driveway.
Yes, when we all got out of the car, it was a mutual experience. You could almost feel a force field surrounding the perimeter of the house.
And I could see she was a little nervous and didn't know what was happening. Neither did we. So I broke the ice by saying, well, we had a dickens of a time finding your house. I saw a man in a cemetery and asked him directions. And I pointed the way to your house, turned around to thank him. He was just gone. And she just cracked up, started laughing. So Pyro began our investigation. And that's really how we met the parents and became involved with that situation.
What struck me about Carolyn Perrin was she was very well spoken, very comprehensive. I could tell at our first meeting she was a bit uncomfortable talking about her situation.
Yeah, she was a little edgy
what
about
we
it.
think of her telling us these things, and her fingers were trembling, but she was extremely well spoken. Seemed like a highly intelligent woman, a very attractive woman, Native American looking. A bit too thin though. She was losing quite a bit of weight.
And we wondered if the house was something of an influence in her, rapidly losing weight. Might have been. So we conducted our investigation, commencing with the interview process. Some amazing things happened that time. Well, one thing that I experienced is I went upstairs. The girls' bedrooms, they had 5 daughters, and the girls' bedrooms were upstairs, and then all the girls were downstairs. Oh, I got to tell this story. When they first met Keith, Keith had long reddish blonde hair, shoulder length, and past your shoulders, parted in the middle. And he had a white muslin shirt on. He was holding a Bible. So what was it, Judy or Nancy? Nancy's looking out the window, and they told us later that Nancy said, "Mom, Jesus is here." What a good first interview. We were sitting talking. Was Roger part of that interview? And he had to leave at a certain point.
Yeah, he was a part of it. He gave us the initial tour. He took us into the barn with Carolyn, and then he had to leave after that.
Yeah.
For a business trip.
So we're sitting down in the parlor speaking with Mrs. Perrin and her daughters. And I heard some shuffling around upstairs in the bedrooms. And yeah, sound effect when you sound effect. It just sounded like people moving around. I said, "Excuse me, do you have guests upstairs?" Mrs. Perrin and the girl said, "No, we hear that almost every day. We hear something up there." So I waited for the interview to recommence, conducted by Donna and Keith. So I quietly made my way back, and I went upstairs, and I wanted to see what that noise is. I might have an interesting experience. So I'm looking around up there, and the noises ceased when I got to the top of the stairwell. I'm looking around in there, and within a minute of me being up there, out of my right peripheral vision, I saw something dark. I'd say black. It was just dark. So reflexively, I turned to look, and then there's this blackness or darkness coming at me. It was formless, just this dark thing coming at me. And it seemed like it was rolling, billowing. My first thought was, there's smoke. I'm going to smell smoke. There's a fire in the house. So I shut my eyes as it, advanced upon me. And then I opened my eyes and it was just going boom.
And it looked like this, right? It didn't look like that.
No, it didn't have that much character.
All right.
That's a spooky thing you just showed. Wow. From our files.
Yeah. But what you described has been seen numerous times by other people.
Since then, in fact, yeah. The new owner's son saw that.
Yeah,
the current residents and people go in there and see that. Yep, Kyler Heinzen. He wouldn't go back to the house for a while. His parents had just acquired because he saw that, and he didn't know my story at the time. So I saw this dark thing. I mean, it didn't scare me. It just happened too fast. So I went down and looked at Keith like, we got something. Then I went down into the basement. I wouldn't say anything overtly paranormal happened down there that day, but while I was down there, then it was illuminated by a single hanging light bulb. And I'm down there and I had no flashlight with me because I didn't think I needed one. And I was stupider than I am now. So I'm in this, basement combing around, and then the light bulb went off. You can picture an 18-year-old Carl just in total darkness. Oh shit. So I could see where the end of the stairwell was. So I made my way back up. So already this place was very interesting. And you want to tell what happened when you went upstairs? We all went upstairs?
Yes, the girls had grabbed me by the wrists and were giving me a tour of the house and all around the buildings and the lawn and everything over the little bridge there.
You got the deluxe tour. I didn't.
Yes. Right. Well,
It was Jesus after all.
Yeah, they like.
Yeah, I did have some pictures.
Yeah, the grown-ups were talking with me though.
But they took me upstairs and was leading me around, showing me to the bedrooms. Then they took me inside the bedroom that Nancy and Andrea shared together. Although sometimes when they were frightened, they would huddle all together in that one bedroom.
Nice when they did that.
And I mentioned there was right over my right shoulder, there was a window that was open. It could not be closed. I guess Carl and
I remember that. Yeah, I said, Roger, this window's open. What was very interesting about that is there he is again.
Sorry, somebody asked us to show it real quick.
That is an actual, what we think is a photograph of a demonic visage, and
Sorry, go back.
it has not been disclaimed. Yeah, we'll do a show on that sometime. This window's jammed open. Now this was August 1973.
Yeah, severe humidity.
I leaned on that window, tried to shut it. I thought it was some bizarre atmospheric condition because of the humidity. That room was like an icebox. The rest of the house was sweltering, and we couldn't close that door, that window. So Roger said, "Yeah, that's jammed open." I didn't want to break it, but I'm putting my weight on it, trying to close it. So what happened then, Keith? You tried an experiment, mild provocation.
Well, yeah, I was upstairs and they were. I was sitting on one bed, the girls, and they had a friend sleeping over that night too. Their own age, and they were telling me, explaining how really frightened they were oftentimes in the house.
Right. Children would
activity,
be.
right?
Yeah.
So I had been praying all the way over. I had my Bible with me. I've been reading scripture, especially scripture about Jesus confronting the demonic. And I asked them, "Well, do you have any religious beliefs?" And they said, "Oh, yes, we are Catholic." And I said, "Well," and of course you can feel the atmosphere building and building and building. I mean, I know James and Carl know exactly what I'm talking about. And anyone watching out there who has had this experience, you know what I mean. It's really pervasive and it's like an electric current. It's building and building, more oppressive. But I told them, well, when you're afraid, try calling upon the name of Jesus. Now, as soon as I said that, it was a split second later, that window came slamming down with terrific force. and it was like somebody switched on something. You could feel it.
Oh yeah,
Current emanating, pulling the energy out
you
of
lack
there.
adequate words to describe this. Like a
This is
mega
only like within
apprehension.
a couple of seconds. Like that, yes.
Yeah, that's what's happening when you talk about these things, dude.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys.
No, it's
Technology.
right. But in that instant, also, Nancy was sitting on the edge of the bed, was slapped on the left side of her head, and that's significant with the demonic that came from the left. And she screamed and held onto her head. Something just slapped me. And they were all screaming and very afraid. And I told them, because I was the closest thing to an adult in the room. So I told them, don't be afraid. It's more afraid of Jesus than you are of it. And I said the name Jesus 3 times. As soon as I finished saying that, suddenly the atmosphere changed back to normal. It was like a breath of fresh air. And they looked around and said, it's gone. It's gone. It's gone. And they were all excited. And so then we went downstairs, and Carl and Donna were talking with Carolyn, and all of a sudden Carolyn did a double take when we came down. They were peak piling me and kissing me and everything. Oh, he helped us out. And that was a good experience there.
All in all,
I wish it had ended there on a good note, you know.
The parents thanked us and we thanked them, and like, we'll come back. You let us know. So I established a rapport with Carolyn because I was kind of like in a take charge mode, and I had the deep voice. She assumed I was the team leader. It was actually Donna, and we all organized this visitation. So I'm talking with Carolyn on the phone after that. Carolyn would call me. I said, you are welcome to call at any time. I want to find out what's happening here. Just elucidate, tell me, keep a log. And she had been keeping a journal.
They knew I was the religious one.
Yeah, that was valuable, obviously, that first day.
There was a time when that night before we left, Andrea had to get some preserves from the cellar.
Oh.
And then there was the door leading downstairs to the cellar that could not be kept closed at a certain time of night. Because when it became evening, it would open. They tried locking it, and it would still open by itself. It had to be kept open. So Andrea came and said she had to get some preserves. And Keith, would you mind coming down? Not that I'm a chicken, but would you mind coming downstairs with me? And I said, not at all. And while she was there, of course, very, very low illumination, she was taking the preserves and her hand was shaking. Okay. And when she was done, I said, just remember, Jesus is watching over us. We're safe, because you could feel it building again. And she said, yes, you're right. So
it's almost like a thunderstorm coming, a storm front.
Yes.
You could feel when things were coalescing on that.
But we went upstairs and were unharmed.
Yeah. Okay. So it's interesting. We could spend the whole hour talking about what people experienced there, like Roger's travail there and all.
Well, I think it's interesting, and to kind of interject into this is to help with your narrative. There's a few inaccuracies that I would like to bring up.
You don't have to interrupt, or we'll just keep going.
You guys said that you guys were approached by Carolyn, right? So
yes,
it wasn't that you guys stumbled upon the Harrisville home, like what is somewhat said, that you guys just stumbled upon the house, knocked on that door. Mm-hmm. She actually reached out to you guys.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
She saw the ad and she came to the college and spoke with us. I remember her being there.
She felt so isolated that to her it was a godsend that there's actually people that will not judge her and come and investigate without preconceived notions like that.
Yeah.
So because she was subject to ridicule. Even the local church, had told Andrea, maybe you and your family would like to find another parish someplace.
Yeah, they said that when they were residing in Cumberland. We let them know right away, we are not going to judge you. We're going to evaluate what's happening, but it's not a judgment on you. Yeah, we believe you've got things happening here. We're experiencing them.
So one of the things that especially, of course, not to say you guys are old or anything like that, you guys are legends and
I think you've already established that.
Very well respected. But one of the things I've heard, especially, knowing the story for about 10 years, because I've known both of you for about that time.
About that time frame.
I met Keith at Walmart when he used to shop there, and then I met you through, of course, acquaintances, and that's where we linked up. But I've heard the story for God knows who long compared to most people that just watch the movie. And one of the things that I always hear, where especially now with the movie, the Warrens were the first ones in there.
Oh, that.
And you guys talked about working with the Warrens. You guys, and I don't want to make it against the Warrens, but you guys have your opinions of them and of course what happened. But the Warrens weren't the first investigators in the house, correct? It was you guys.
Mhm.
That is correct. Yes.
So how I think some people are interested because they watched the movie, the 2013 movie, and they watched the Conjuring universe now that has tiraded Hollywood. How did they get involved? What brought you guys to bring the Warrens in? Because at that time in the 70s, they weren't, of course, as big as they are now in this generation, now how they looked at because of the Hollywood movies and stuff, but
Right.
they were pretty well known back then.
They were known in paranormal circles. They were very popular lecturers.
Yeah, they became very well known when the Amityville Horror came out because they were the first paranormal investigators to investigate there, which was not in the movie, but it was in the book by Jay Anson.
And I believe to allow you to elaborate on how you guys brought the Warrens, and I definitely, and this is not to slam the Warren estate at all,
Right?
but I'm pretty sure there is a quote by Lorraine that said that this movie was true to real life as any movie can be, including like Gone with the Wind. So, and she also did say that Ed and I were the only investigators at the house at that time. And for people that don't agree with that, this can be found. This has been stated on interviews corresponding to the movie and stuff. So how do you guys feel about that?
Well, I will say that's absolutely true. Lorraine Warren did say those things.
Yes.
That's true. You know,
Yes.
but the facts are different, you know, because it was because of us that the Warrens actually.
I know, understandably, Donna was very upset about it.
Yeah, Donna still is, and I can understand that. I mean, I have no emotional attachment to that. You know, one could say that the Warrens usurped our case, and that is true. You know, it was so long ago, and it's part of the times.
We were dealing with case jumpers at the time. As Carl pointed out, that there was a group at Rhode Island College that attempted that when they found out about our case somehow.
Yeah, there was a rival paranormal group extant at Rhode Island College, and these two bozos went over to the parents' house, and their approach was to offer their help, but in so doing, put Pyro down, say we had, you know, we can't do anything for them, you know, but they're the real professionals.
Carolyn's there when they arrived. Oh, are you with Pyro? No, ma'am. We do what they do, only a lot better.
That's a quote.
Right.
It sounds like the modern paranormal field back in 1970.
Yeah, some things haven't changed that much, you know. So there were, you know, two attempts at claim jumping. One of them succeeded famously.
Very much so.
Yeah. Yeah, but you know, the real story is that Ed Warren. Well, I consulted Ed Warren. You know, actually, Donna suggested that we get in touch with the Warrens, but Keith and I had talked about that before, and we thought we could benefit from the Warrens' vast experience. You know, enlisting their consultation.
Right.
But
yeah,
they agreed. In fact, they volunteered to come to the house.
Yes, they did.
So at that time, the time we met the parents and came involved with their situation,
right,
we were acquainted with Ed and Lorraine Warren for 16 months.
Right.
At that point. So
And
it was only natural.
Yeah, they were contacted by Pyro just to consult. What would you, because of your years of experience, Ed and Lorraine, because they're friends of ours, we asked them, what would you do in this situation? And they said,
well, we wanted advice from Ed and
yeah,
Lorraine
we'll
Warren.
do more than just advise you. We'll come down there and get involved. And what actually prompted that was Carolyn had a very disturbing experience. Now, that's kind of somewhat accurate the way it was portrayed in the movie, but it was 5:15 in the morning one morning. It was shortly after our visit, only a few days after our visit. And just twilight time, the silver light was coming into the window, and suddenly Carolyn woke up, and there was something wrong in the room. She could sense something was very wrong. There was something, it looked kind of like a firework fuse going off on her dresser, and the room smelled. It was permeating
Sulfuric?
Yeah, sulfuric and rotten flesh, decay. And
Not very wholesome.
No, not at all. And then she looked, and it was something almost undescribable at the foot of her bed. It was kind of an apparition of a woman, or what once may have been a woman, very much a desiccated corpse, wearing a long gray dress with gray hair and a face which Carolyn described as resembling a desiccated hornet's nest, with the features kind of coming and going. And as she watched it, she She didn't scream, but she tried to wake Roger. She was punching him and trying to wake him up, Roger, Roger, and he just would not wake up, like he was in a somnambulistic state or something. And this horrid phantasm began floating towards Carolyn to the side of her bed, and all the time she heard it chanting, "I'll drive you mad with fiery brooms. I'll drive you mad with death and gloom. I'll drive you out, but 'twill be too late. You'll be dead." And she could see these jagged yellow teeth just smiling. And then it vanished. And then Roger woke up.
Yeah.
Now, Roger didn't experience anything except for the fact that he had gouges on his back that were freshly bleeding.
But I will point out that this was a very subjective case on the part of Carolyn Parent. Well, was it a vivid dream? Was it hallucination? Was it an actual apparition? We can't know because it's Carolyn's experience that she related.
Right. But it was real enough to her where she contacted Donna in a fright that very morning and told her experience and wrote down what she could remember of the chant and just said, Donna, I'm a tough farm woman. I grew up in a Georgia farm, and I've seen mutilations, but this is frying my nerves. I can't take much more of this. So Donna told her, well, I'm going to try to get in touch with the Warrens right now. And she did call him and get in touch with them. And I know then you had the conversation with Ed.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. And one thing in the movie that was portrayed, which is actually true, Lorraine walks through the house and then she tells the Parent family, there is a malevolent presence in this house, and its name is Bathsheba.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yes. Now, that is true. She did say that. But what they didn't show in the movie was that before, when we had our consultations with Ed and Lorraine, Donna had told her about Bathsheba. She had told her about, because we've been taken by the family to that cemetery. So Lorraine would have already known about Bathsheba.
Yes, Lorraine would have known the name Bathsheba Sherman. And what is that other caveat? The parents, when they resided in Cumberland, they had a dog.
Yeah, they had a dog named Sheba, which was short for Bathsheba.
Yeah.
And of course, Lorraine couldn't have known this, but what Donna did tell her about, we've been to the grave of Bathsheba Sherman, Bathsheba Thayer Sherman Green. And that's who they suspected at the time. Later on, they didn't, years later when they did more research, but at the time they suspected that
they, you mean the Parent
family? Yeah. Yes, the Parent family. Yes, they suspected that was who was haunting their house and terrorizing them.
And then before we get too far on that, there is a picture for people that say maybe that Keith and Carl are lying about ever being involved.
Well, Lorraine Warren did say we were the only paranormal investigators on that scene at that time.
So one of the things that we do have, and thank God the technology, but our Instagram and of course Keith's Facebook followers, Keith and Sandra's Facebook followers that are watching, we have multiple camera setups right now. Yeah. But for the people that are watching through Duo or Carl's page, this is actually Carl and case manager Donner with Lorraine, with Carolyn, and I think it's Andrea taking the picture, correct?
Andrea Parent took the picture. It was a Polaroid picture, and that's one of the girls to the Carolyn's right. And now, of course, it's kind of washed out, overexposed, but the background is vivid. Yeah.
Who's that sexy devil in the back right there, that blue? Who's that guy?
Oh, Guy. I thought you were talking about the girl.
Isn't that Engelbert Humperdinck at the time?
Yeah. That would be me.
It looks like Elvis with the sideburns there.
Yep, that's myself. I wasn't sure that was if that was Keith or me, but then I saw
Donna.
Donna's got her arm.
Carl's always been the lady man.
Yeah. That was definitely you.
And then who's that woman right beside Donna? Is that the person that you guys brought in? Is that Lorraine?
That's who we brought in, who would not have been there were it not for us. That's her initial tour, which I was helping to conduct. I greeted the Warrens as they pulled up into the driveway. So, they were friends at that point. Yeah, come on in, Ed and Lorraine. I'm happy to introduce you. So that's us going through the basement area. Those vents, those air ducts are still there. And met us Donna, case manager, who cannot be with us tonight, but hopefully we'll see our show. And that's it. Lorraine used to put her hand like that when she was receiving. I remember on a clavicle, she put her hand up like that.
And then one other thing too is, you had talked about Bathsheba a little bit. Lorraine Warren learned of the existence of demon witch Bathsheba Sherman, firstly from a vision she had. And of course, this was with a branch of a huge tree, and that simply does not exist there.
Right, which she was found hanging from. That's supposedly
which is interpreted in the movie.
Yeah,
you see the hanging tree.
Yeah.
But I do want to bring upon, and of course, Carl and I would do a Daemonologie work with a historian. Her name is Alicia Marco Carlson, and she was able to find some things with Bathsheba,
Yes,
her obituary, of
connection.
course, and supposedly that she had killed people or killed a baby or something like that. Like that, she was this evil woman.
So the rumors went, but then you have her actual obituary.
And there's nothing abnormal about her. Nothing, she was totally innocuous. Nothing sinister about Mrs. Bathsheba Sherman. Widow of the late Judson Sherman died in her residence on Monday morning last from a sudden attack of paralysis, aged 72 years. And I have a book, on loan from the library. It's about Burrillville, and there's no anything odd would have been in that book. Anything anecdotal.
Right. And why
there's
would
no mention of her at all.
Why would a known satanic witch be given a Christian funeral like that? She was actually of the Baptist faith, and she's buried in hallowed ground. Her stone, of course, has been heavily vandalized over the years because somebody's got to go and break.
Well, then with the discovery or the connection with Bathsheba Sherman, suddenly Mrs. Perrin and the Warrens have their villainous. There's the demon witch Bathsheba. Now they can attribute everything.
And there were rumors going around for a while. They had actually, Aunt Carolyn had actually interviewed an elderly man in the town. It was Mr. McCutcheon. In the book House of Darkness, House of Light, it's pronounced Mr. McCutcheon, but his name was actually Mr. McCutcheon, and he was an elderly resident, very elderly of the town, and he wanted to talk, and they were willing to listen. He wanted to talk about Bathsheba. Oh, she was a terrible woman. I remember her, and
that was not within living memory, though.
Well, he said it was. He said she used to beat her, hired help, and starve them and everything. But this is
sounds like Quint from Jaws.
Right? Yeah, very much. He would have been like 4 years old at the time. So so he obviously wouldn't have been an eyewitness. And there were rumors abounding. And what do you think of the rumors that started about?
I think
Sherman there.
I think Carolyn Perrin was sincere. I think she,
very
in depth with her. I mean, I do believe she was, and is very in depth in her research, which she never got back, never got her log back or journal,
right, true.
From the Warrens. And now, I'm not saying that the Warrens, fit that in and made that puzzle piece fit, that they contrived it. I'd like to say that, but I won't say it. But I mean, I'm not sure. But that's where Bathsheba is introduced. The character of the evil Bathsheba, the demon witch, who's, that's what the master spirit is in the movie The Conjuring. Yes, the wicked Bathsheba. And even at the time of the investigation, we heard that would be her, from Carolyn's account.
And there's not enough historical data to it, but I'm pretty certain that Bathsheba Sherman actually never resided in the house either, right?
There was some illusion that she might have lived there for a while, but it would have been briefly, and it was more likely that she was a neighbor who visited there sometime. But she probably did not reside there.
She would have known the Arnold family.
Yeah, she would have known them.
They were very prominent. But as far as we know,
as far as her being,
she lived on a farmstead nearby.
Taking a baby's life through throwing it into a well or strangling it, for satanic purposes, and all. It just didn't happen that way. I mean, that would have been known.
I mean, we not just myself and Elise, but there have been lawyers and investigators that have looked for any evidence of it and not find it at all. They were trying to disprove everything.
Well, so people want to attach a sinister past to that house. It's just a very old and majestic farmhouse.
Yeah.
It just didn't have the bizarre history that is attributed to it.
Well, it's like the former resident there, when we were speaking with her, said she's asked often, how many people died in this house? And she said, all of them. They didn't have nursing homes and hospitals like we have today.
And these are some of the people that I do believe that died in this house. John Arnold, of course, Susan.
Yeah, well, Susan Arnold lived on another farm instead. Nearby.
But she's been also associated
she died,
with the house.
Now, that's some discrepancy too, controversy. The Perrin family believed that when they no longer believed it was Bathsheba Thayer Sherman Green who was haunting their house, they believed it may have been Mrs. John Arnold. John Arnold having committed suicide in the house at one point. Well, the Mrs. John Arnold we were able to trace was actually Susan Arnold that lived on a neighboring farmstead, and she died in April of 1866 by her own hand, suicide. And if you read the article, it's strange because I mean it's an old article and the dates don't match up exactly the days of the week. But if you
Which I get the obituary on.
right, yeah, it does have her obituary.
It's hard to read, but we can send you that if you're interested, of course. Thanks to Elise for getting us that.
Apparently, she had all these different ways lined up of how she was going to end her life. She had a jerk knife and mercury poisoning and a loaded pistol, and finally strung herself up by a thin cord in a closet and apparently hanged herself. At least that's what the inquest said. And so that was ruled a suicide. And she had her burial dress, probably, although it doesn't say this in the article, I would conjecture that was probably her Easter dress she wore. She had her very recently because it was very shortly after Easter. It was Easter weekend. It was on a bed in an adjoining bedroom. She had laid out her dress, which obviously she wanted to be buried in.
So people have died there, of course.
Oh, yeah.
And you
died there.
You guys had your experiences from August to September. But get to roll back a little bit and not to make this about the Warrens, but we're here to tell the truth about this case and to tell the truth of actually what happened. You know, people see the movie and see Ed and Lorraine Warren, and this is not to badmouth them specifically for me because I do respect them. I know you guys do as well in some form or fashion.
We're close friends with Ed and Lorraine for years. Man.
But one of the things that you see in the movie at the end of the movie is Ed and Lorraine, or at least Ed performing the rite of exorcism.
Oh, yeah.
And him saving the day, and the day's over, you know, it's everlasting happiness, you know, the parents are saved, happy
as Andrea herself says, a kumbaya moment, yes.
So, kumbaya moment.
Right.
So, what actually occurred once you guys got the Warrens involved?
That exorcism, I must have missed that somehow.
But what actually happened? I showed the picture of Carl and Don. Of course, Keith wasn't in that photo, but he was definitely there. What happened after that pivotal moment in that case?
Well, what really happened, and Roger Tarrant gives his description of what happened there, and other eyewitnesses have corroborated. What really happened was that the Warrens, well, when we brought them into the case, into the situation, I had asked Ed over the phone. I said, "Now it's my understanding we're going to be working together on this case because we were a fledgling but established group of paranormal investigators." He said, "Oh, yeah, definitely." I said,
they essentially came in to assist us.
Yeah. And
why did you said you brought them in because of these little things? Not to interrupt, you brought them in because of certain things, and you thought
it was never that we were in over our heads. You know, we got to call the Warrens and beat it out of here. It was never that.
And what would you suggest our next?
And they volunteered to come, so we're not going to say no. Like, this will, I'll be a real boon for the family. So, and Lorraine showed up. Did their tour of the house, did their preliminary investigation, the sweep of the house. But what transpired after that was the Warrens conducted not an investigation, but an intercession, because I didn't hear from Carolyn. Carolyn had been calling me, Mrs. Parent, had been calling me, 5, sometimes 10, 11 times a day, reporting a blow-by-blow description of what's happening in the house.
And if I can just quickly interject, if anybody's interested in hearing the actual interview with Ed and Lorraine Warren interviewing the Roger and Carolyn Perrin, that can be found online.
Oh, really?
Yeah. If you can't find it, contact Tony Sparrow, who is the head of NESPR now, the Warrens group, and he will direct you to where you can find it.
That's fascinating. I didn't actually know that existed.
Yes, it does.
No, what happened was to my surprise, I was her chief contact at the time. I didn't hear from Carolyn Perrin for the next, I don't know, it was almost 2 weeks.
After you've been hearing from her daily.
Yeah, daily, to be sure. And
what did our dad say when you
came in? My father, because I was living at my parents' home, and the phone was ringing all the time, and my father didn't have his newspaper. Who is this woman that keeps calling you? Is this a girlfriend? I said, not exactly, Dad, no. So suddenly that communication breaks off, and don't hear from Carol. So we had a meeting of Pyro, and we decided we've got to leave them alone because either they're very involved in this case, the Warrens are involved in their situation, or it's been successfully resolved. In any event, we are not hearing from them. I placed 2 calls to Carolyn, didn't hear back from her. So that's, that's it for us. And then after, I think, what was it, like 16 days afterwards, received a phone call from Carolyn. I took a call from her. She said, apologized for not having been in touch. She informed me that Ed and Lorraine Warren had told them, the parent family, that they could be of no help unless they were the only paranormal investigators there. They said, we were just a bunch of kids. We couldn't do any good.
Yeah, we meant well.
We meant well, but you don't have them back. And, believing in the Warrens at that time, they had to go along with that. So that's why we became disassociated with the parents' case.
Now, I heard the children were heartbroken when we didn't come back.
Yeah, they really bonded with us.
Yeah, because there was a gap in age, but there was closeness in age as well. Right?
Yeah, Andrea was a teenager too, so she was close.
Yeah, and again, this is not stemmed from vitriol on my part. I have no emotional engagement in this case now. It was so long ago, and I understood at the time, or at least accepted it. So, why didn't we resume our investigation after the Warrens left? Because the Warrens investigated up until the end of October 1973. They took over from us in mid-September. And on the advisement of Mrs. Warren, a seance was arranged at the house, a now notorious seance. So that seance actually did transpire. Not an exorcism by any means, a seance.
And Ed Warren had brought along a reporter too. In case anything happened, he wanted to be documented and everything. They brought along a priest too, young priest, from what I understand, had been working with them.
Yes, how did that
These
priest
things
say
get out of
he
control?
Didn't feel very effective during that.
Well, I guess the seance did get when Carolyn was ultimately taken over by something, and she bent over into a bowed position, an impossible position, like a contortionist, and she began speaking in this. Andrea was watching through the crack in the door with one of her sisters. They didn't know she was up, but it sounded like kind of like a no known language. I don't know if it was
get the
American,
scene.
but
Roger Parent, the head of the house, Carolyn's husband, he had come home from work and he finds this crew there, a camera crew. He finds Ed and Lorraine, which were familiar people,
and another psychic along with Lorraine.
Psychic,
actually,
Lorraine, who was a clairvoyant, and a reporter and a priest. Roger was not happy about this. He said, they're already here. Let them do their thing. So the seance was conducted. Carolyn Perrin, who was very susceptible and possibly very suggestive, was taken over by some invasive entity. Again, it's Carolyn's experience. And she started, as Keith was saying, speaking in this, what seemed like another language. At a certain point, Carolyn Perrin's body was flung out of her chair into what's now the dining room, the conjoining room. Let's see, about 12 feet away.
Yeah.
Boom, Now, this is according to the eyewitnesses and Roger. So Roger, she was unconscious on the floor. They thought she died because it was very unusual circumstances.
Yeah, she didn't appear to be even breathing at the time.
Roger ran over to assist his wife and, was holding her head up. Regrettably for Mr. Warren, Ed Warren came out and tried to stand in between he and Roger and Carolyn and said, "You must never touch the possessed." So Roger's response was to stand up, haul off, and sock Ed in the face. And, in fact, Roger tells him, "I think he did lose that tooth." And
Roger still has a scar in his knuckle too, so I guess it was a mutual trade-off.
Yeah, definitely, right?
It must have been an explosive scene at the time.
Yeah.
And this was October 30th, Devil's Night.
And the priest was like, "What do I do? What do I do? I've never been in a situation like this."
Well, you got more than you bargained for. So Roger ordered them out of the house. "I want this house cleared. That's it. And I am done with paranormal groups coming in here." So that's why we didn't go back either.
So before they did the seance, and of course, all three of us very, of course, have our faith and beliefs. And at this point, Keith, I knew that you had a different approach, but you guys were performing a scientific investigation of that.
To the best of our abilities at the time, we had a methodology to our investigation. We were documenting. I mean, I would have done some things differently. But one thing I didn't agree with that I did at the time, I don't now.
We were certainly aware of the fact and discussed the fact that atmospheric changes were taking place in the house.
Yeah.
When certain things were provoked.
Now, what could we have done? We
changes.
could have brought, we could have photographed more. I mean, we had, we have scant photographs from the time.
Yeah,
And
if
the
we
years,
had to
successive years,
do
they all
over
get
again, it would have documented
They become
on
misplaced.
film and recording every single second.
But we were trying to be scientific. We were taking notes and taking pictures.
So, as of course, you weren't necessarily there to the full
cycle of the investigation.
With the Warrens.
Mhm.
Did the Warrens exhaust every logical mundane explanation before they jumped to the conclusion of doing a seance? What was their? Do you know what their formula was? Did you,
I believe,
or did they just jump to that?
I think they jumped to that. I think they jumped to that conclusion the first day they came there. It was not. It was an intercession, not an investigation they were performing.
Right now, a full parapsychological team would have set up all cameras and recordings. Even back then, it was an early date and everything like that, because that would have been the full scientific approach. However, as Carl said, they came specifically to do an intercession, and that's what they did, and it went horribly wrong. I mean,
but we weren't involved in that. I thought that they would be the demonologists. They would address the sinister aspect, the spectral evidence, and we would be the documenters. We would be, taking pictures, recording, and all that. But that's not the way it was to happen.
And not to jump too far in advance, because there's so much more to the story. We might not even get to all of it tonight. But I think one of the key things that I kind of know, but the listeners don't. Maybe I actually really don't know Keith's point of view, actually, in some form. But if you had to look back in 1973 with the 2 months that you spent there, and of course, many times that you guys, or Carl more so, have been there back to that house, what would you say is actually at the Conjuring House, or
some very nice people?
Yes.
Yeah, and the residents there are just wonderful.
Well, even back then in 1973, what did you guys?
Back then, I thought then what I think now. I think it is the house that is the haunting. I think it has accrued so many remnants of personalities. The house has actually become a receiver, and it's taken on an evanescent life or mind of its own. The house being that old,
and what we know of the
being
house,
occupied that long, it is its own presence. It's a personality. Right. Some people it like, some people it don't. Some people don't feel welcome there. Have bad experience.
That property was land deeded to Roger Williams, the founder of Rhode Island, in the 17th century. And when it was built in 1736, there were already other outbuildings, smaller outbuildings there. And it was actually occupied originally when it was first built by a man named Richardson. And of course, he was a member of the Arnold family. And he actually married a Nipmuc woman, a member of the Nipmuc tribe. We don't know what her original name was.
They called her Mary.
Right, you're right. She went by the name of Mary because she had to be given a Christian name. Yeah, just like Pocahontas became Princess Rebecca in England. So her name was Mary, and they were the first. She was the first mistress of the house there.
Yeah, so the house has a fascinating history on its own, not necessarily a tragic one. Elements of tragedy sometimes, I'm sure. But I think it's the house that is the haunting. Not individual spirits. It's a conglomeration of spirits there. The house seems to sense people, whether they're intense or forthright or not. And some people have a very good time there. And Mr. John Huntington is doing some very valuable research on that house now. He works with the spirit box, the ghost box, by whatever name we call it. He's made advances and improved the system and gets some very interesting responses. So the house does speak to people and answers people.
Is that what would you agree upon, Keith, or do you have a different perspective of it?
My opinion, when I went there first, Carl and I were 18 years old. I did come in with a preconceived notion, but I didn't act upon that. Right? I mean, I came in that if these were human spirits, if indeed there were spirits there, I was willing to go along with that. But I didn't come out, like saying in the name of Jesus, show me yourself, show me. I didn't do that at all. No, I simply, the children were being picked on, and that made me very angry. But I just gave them advice. You're Catholic, well, call upon the name of Jesus. That's all I said. I didn't defy anything, but that was taken apparently by something as provocation. Therefore, that reaction there, severe reaction.
So you didn't take as heavy an approach as the Warrens did.
No, I didn't. But my personal opinion, it's something that's been on the grounds and probably goes back before the white settlers, goes back to the Nipmuc tribe, because they had their.
It may have something to do with land conditions there too,
That too,
substances in the soil. In the ground.
Too. My personal opinion, there may have been some sort of hybridization involved, going way, way back generations before like the white settlers were even there. But I think something's always been there on that ground, and I think it always will be.
But would you think that, and not to throw this word out there, but you hear this a lot with Native American culture and their lands, would you think maybe a tulpa was there, maybe some form of thought form?
Some displacement of energy.
I think there could have been, and that may have drawn in other entities as well. You know, like almost like a spiritual breeding ground.
Definitely.
So many factors that parapsychologists would consider. Is this on what we call a ley line? You know, bisecting lines of energy. You know, where manifestations are rife. You know, there's got to be a lot of factors.
So everybody, of course, watches the movie, and I have to keep iterating that, or reiterating that, because that's what we can go based upon. Of course, Paranormal Realities, and then House of Light, House of Darkness, which is written by Andrea. But if you had to similarize a certain thing to that haunting, you guys had your own haunting. You guys dealt with it in the Johnson household, and you guys dealt with what many people think to be one of the most haunted houses in the world, the country. If you had to take upon yourself, and this is not to slam the Conjuring House, because I think it's a great place. I've had experiences there, great experiences, not bad. But if you had to say, for people that are listening, your opinion of especially dealing with your own haunting, what was the intensity of that haunting? Would you say it was similar to yours, or was worse than yours? Or do you also quantify it to be the worst haunted house in the country?
It is when things are happening.
Yeah.
You go through long spans where it's not that severe.
Of course, you know, in our house, I didn't experience everything Carl did. Carl didn't experience everything I did. Like, I never saw a full-bodied apparition in our house. Carl did. He was confronted by it at one point.
Yeah. I would say that haunting there is neither historic nor that severe.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's had its moments where it did terrify the parents' family. I had moments in my parents' house where I was terrified.
Definitely.
You know, I had moved my bedroom down to the basement. Turned out that was the center of activity. That's why I started seeing this, what looked like a woman in apparition. I saw her like 4 times altogether. So and there was moving around, furniture moving.
Yeah.
No, I got to sleep upstairs. I'm going up to the couch. And then it got worse when I went upstairs in my parents' house, because there was a thundering reverberation, slamming on the roof.
Yeah.
It sounded like things were happening. So then there were times it was very terrifying there, times at the parents' house. While they were dissimilar in the manifestations, I'd say it was about equal with what was happening in my parents'
But you have
house.
to realize, of course, that was a very unique situation, James, when the parents moved in there. A young family, Roger and Carolyn were relatively young, and they have 5 young girls, all of various ages, you know, like 12 years old on down at the time, you know. And
so you've got the perfect storm for a haunting.
Oh, yeah, you know. And
there was genuine activity there.
And so I think there were spirits there, at least one spirit, that really, really took advantage of that situation. The vulnerable young girls, you know, they're going to respond to certain things, certain stimulus.
Definitely. Do you think, not to interject, you know, I wasn't even alive back then. I wasn't.
Well, you can moderate. Yeah, you weren't even alive.
But seriously,
you got nothing to say.
Seriously, but would you also say maybe there were some spectrums of the adolescence, maybe like psychic tantrums involved with what was occurring as well? Maybe there was something there, but they were also, like you said, a catalyst.
Well, you've got a battery there. You got the 5 daughters of different, you know, various ages, of course.
Right, I agree with that.
So what would you say about it? That it was because these girls were in like teenagers at the time?
Yes, and pre-teenagers too. And they would, I mean, not all experiences were necessarily negative. At least they didn't seem negative, because even a demonic spirit can pretend to be very nice.
Very manipulative.
Yeah, would mother them sometimes, tuck them in, kiss them goodnight and things. You know, nice fresh scents and everything. And then there was the evil spirit that would, you know, monopolize them, and eventually was very hostile to Carolyn. Number of experiences which, you know, we could detail. But Roger, after his first experience with his back being gouged, it seemed to be making a kind of a play for him. And there was a time that it was the day before Labor Day and weekend before Labor Day, and Carolyn took the children out to get new shoes into their favorite store in Massachusetts. And he was alone in the house, and suddenly he was eating some fresh scallops, and suddenly he heard footsteps coming up the stairs. He looked out. Yeah, exactly. And he looked outside, the station wagon was gone, so he realizes something's coming up. And he had a very negative reaction to that. When he heard it coming up, the door started to open, and he his temper let loose, and he said, "All right, you old witch, either show yourself or get the hell out." Down, slammed. And suddenly he realizes what he'd done. You know, I've offended somebody really bad. And
he regretted that.
He felt very, very guilty.
Antagonized.
Right. And then there was time months later when, of course, they had the old pump with it, had the belt around it like that to pump the water.
Yep.
And he went to get a drink of water and it was not working. So he had to go down and put the belt back on. And he felt that the spirit was down there. And he said, "Look, I apologize. I didn't mean to say what I did. If you accept my apology, please let me know." And he felt the hands on his back, gentle hands on his back.
So Roger was having his
He said,
spectrum of experience.
"If you do accept my apology, please do that again." And it did.
And it's interesting because he wasn't having experiences at first. It was mostly Carol and
Right,
the daughters,
exactly. His were later, and it was years later that he was in with Andrea, and they came to the house to do an interview, and he said he felt that, and it's on video. You don't really see anything paranormal happening, but he said, "I'm feeling it. Her hands are on it." So I know the current owner has felt that too. And only men seem to feel that in that house for some reason.
That's right.
And welcoming feeling.
Yeah, the kind of like the feminine hands on the
Oh,
shoulders.
right. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, but of course that could all be deception too.
Have you noticed that the lady of the house now, the current owners, she has quite a resemblance to Carolyn Perrin?
She does.
You know, and
Yeah,
Carolyn
there's
looked
that.
at that.
Just imagine Jen Heisen, and there's Carolyn, right?
Yeah.
I could
The
see
one
that.
out.
I wish I had a picture of Jen.
Except Jennifer has features that lady doesn't.
Yeah.
That's only because it's washed out a little
Yeah.
bit. But
But you can see the
you
same
can
facial
see if you
features.
look at
Yeah.
you look at pictures of Carolyn Perrin from that age and that era, that there's a remarkable resemblance.
Well, I always, for years, I felt very, very protective since that experience, towards the Perrin family, even when I wasn't, for many years, not even in touch with them. And, Andrea and I had always discussed, if we ever come back there as a family there, all of us, the children, siblings, if we ever come back there, I want you there, Keith. And I said, I would well love to be, because I feel so protective still. And
Yeah.
almost had that chance, but the Perrin family, the original Perrin family, the children, 5 children came there, and they were in the house, and I didn't know about it. It was for a TV show, and I wasn't informed about it till afterwards. So I guess I missed that chance for life.
Yeah.
Would have been nice to be contacted, but I mean, I understand.
Well, I'll
they
tell
were
you.
doing a TV show there at one of the paranormal.
I was informed that I had a unique opportunity. Well, actually, it wasn't my opportunity. I was going to be, and this was a cogent plan at the time. I was going to be portrayed in the movie The Conjuring. Somebody was going to play me. Now, that may sound like a boon or something, or, wow, but from what I heard, it was not going to be good.
So,
They say there's no
lucky.
such thing as bad press. This would have
could have
been bad. I was a perpetrator, a satanic guy, and I will say I was.
You were dabbled in some dark things.
Oh no, yes, I did. I was experimenting with ritual magic and all, and I was the more experimentative twin or something.
It's interesting sometimes the way male and female will sometimes have a reaction at the house. Like, I've been there, and I'm always recording. I don't ask questions anymore. I don't ask questions anymore because I think it gets very dangerous. But whenever I've been there with Sandra, you get very clear EVP. And the last time we were there for an interview.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, that was very interesting. Yeah, because you hear voices, the interviewers look, what's that? You hear voices
It was
going
all audible.
Right.
Yeah.
All audible, yeah. So, but I don't know. Since Sandra and I are there together, it seems to perk that up. When I'm there by myself,
Maybe you
not so
remind the
much.
house of some people. I don't know.
Maybe it's
It
the
could be
dynamic, it's the battery, it's like that influence of female and male.
Yeah.
mirrors have a very kind of strange effect in that house too. I know Carl had an
You had
experience.
experience,
Yeah.
You want to tell that?
I'll tell you, yeah. Oh, by the way, I did make sure that I was not portrayed in the movie, because I would have spent the rest of my time in paranormal studies. Now, every time I lectured, that wasn't me, with all one person in the audience.
But now you got a lecture that you guys were involved, so in some ways, it's like that was the lesser of two evils. Lesser of two evils.
It's just amusing now.
Yeah.
But now, historian Elise Carlson and I went to the house in June of 2019, the day after Corey and Jen had the closing on the house, and they invited us over. And I went into what's now a parlor room. It was the kitchen. and I saw this large rectangular mirror on the wall. I said, that looks like the same mirror that was there when Roger and Carolyn owned the house. And they did very little renovation as far as changing things. And, Norma Sutcliffe and her husband, Jerry, before they changed. Yeah, they did. And I said, that looks like the same mirror, certainly the same style. I went over and looked in that mirror. This is true. It was a bright sunny day in June. The Heinz and Elise were in the next room, and the receiving room that used to be the barn. And I look at my reflection. So help me. I don't know if you got a picture of me somewhere.
Well, I got the picture of this one that I didn't upload that one, but this picture.
Yeah.
Just imagine this cute looking dude in the back, the blue.
Well, the other picture is nicer.
It is. Yeah. I'm sorry. I failed you.
Well, I looked at myself, and I saw myself as I looked at age 18. This is true. I really did. Empirically, obviously, I saw this, and I wanted to call for Elise. Elise, come on in here. You got to see this. I had a feeling that as soon as anybody else came in that room, it would be gone. I saw my reflection looked like I was when I was 18. I had long, shoulder-length blonde hair, and just looked younger. But I was wearing my same, modern-day red polo shirt, and my reflection was moving with me. So I said, "This is the gas. This is something." I know it's going to stop if anybody else comes in. So I'm just going to look at this and appreciate it and memorize it and know this was a real experience. I looked at myself for about 90 seconds, and then I figured, okay, party's over.
Andrea had a similar experience.
Well, what a bummer it was when I went to the bathroom and saw that mirror. It's like, oh, no.
We still look.
I was hoping it would last. There we go. Let's see if you can get that. Yeah. But that's who I saw. Were you able to project it?
Hold on a second.
No hurry. But that's who I saw there. Hair length and all that. Sideburns. I mean, it's just, I saw myself at age 18.
What's funny?
Look at this handsome fella.
That's who I saw. That's the guy.
That's the age.
It's in the middle too, right where you are. Just
it's working again.
It's working again. No.
That's at the time around the time we met Ed and Lorraine Warren. We were at that age.
Yeah, that's right around that time.
It's interesting that I came to that mirror and I looked underneath it, and right below.
You weren't any younger, were you?
No, I saw that on a table right below the mirror.
I don't know, what would you look like, Chase? You'd be a baby.
They had this shrine to Carl. It was a shrine to Carl. Carl had set this up. There's a picture of him with a Ouija board in the back, and I thought, oh, that's funny. And Carl
saw that?
Yeah, Carl set up a little shrine to himself. But they left it there. It's still there.
I didn't
know who set it up.
I didn't set it up. Corey and John set that up. There was a picture of me, like one of my publicity shots, with my demonologist regalia with the black trench coat, and the fedora hat.
Nobody's going to set up a picture of me.
And they had that, and they had a Ouija board, and like a crystal ball, and black candles surrounding it. And Corey surprised me with that. He said, "Come on here, Carl. Let's go to the kitchen." I just said, "What?" I said, "It's a Carl shrine." He was waiting for me to say.
I thought he set it up.
No, I didn't set it up. I was flattered.
So we've already gone over an hour, and I know some people want to probably ask questions.
Yeah, if we could.
I definitely want to ask one thing before we end and go to the questions, because there's like 102 comments that we haven't read yet.
Oh my word!
I've been trying to read them all. What is one thing that you guys wish you did differently when it came to the farm on Round Top Road, or what people call the Conjuring House? What would you guys have done differently? And is there anything that you wish to say to people that do go to that house and are very interested in exploring it to this day? Because you can do so.
You don't necessarily invite famous paranormal investigators to assist you. Not that it was all a bad experience, and I do miss Ed and Lorraine, of course. I would have, more documentation. Like Keith enjoys reminding me of this, that I was in such a hurry to get there. So we told them we'd be here at a certain time. We told Carol and Roger we'd be there.
You were on time for once?
Yeah, but to my everlasting regret, because I didn't give him a chance to pack the cameras.
Well, I just come back from my landscaping job. That's why I couldn't come the next week, but ironically, I got laid off from it next week, seasonal. But yeah. And
That's funny. I got laid off one day when I went to the Conjuring House earlier this year.
Wow.
So if you guys don't want your job anymore, go to the Conjuring House.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Myself, I think, of course, like we were just talking about it, we've documented everything,
Hmm.
kind of fanatically, you know. And I would
Because
have
she's still valuable now.
yeah. And we basically, you know, of course, we were respectful and everything, but I think I would have. I mean, Carolyn kept calling.
They didn't especially want us to take
Going
pictures in the
down,
house,
and I-
Roger and Carolyn anyway, but
Right,
we could have
right.
done more than we did.
Right, but you know, and I would have called them. I would have made sure I kept calling them as how's everything going and everything like that.
Hmm.
But my advice to people is, of course, obviously, be respectful. You know, be respectful. Don't taunt whatever's there.
Because you'll be welcomed back by the owners and by the house.
Yeah,
Be
be
respectful.
respectful, and you have to remember it is somebody's house. Somebody lives there now. How many people have lived and died there? Well, families living there now. So
Well, yeah,
be very respectful.
To be respectful to our listeners, we should try to field a couple of those questions and comments.
Mhm,
We have
yes.
time to.
Yeah, so guys, if you have any questions, I'm gonna try to find a few.
There
is
we'll
actually-
keep in touch with people.
There's the
We'll get
current
to them.
homeowner right there, Jennifer.
Hope
Hello.
you said everything right.
I'm just in time then. That means probably when we were talking about her similarities to Carolyn, her resemblance.
I always noticed that. It was strange actually going to the house and seeing them there. I mean, I was acquainted, with Corey, the homeowner, but to see Jennifer in that setting was rather surprising.
I know we have a video on this, of course, doing Daemonologie, and that has probably nothing to do with it, so to say. Aliens and spirits, do you guys have a philosophy or ideas as to walk-ins or alien possessions? Like you to simulate this and to relate it to the Conjuring, aliens were not involved. I've heard stories
Yeah.
more recently that there was alien observation
Right.
at this
Yeah,
house.
Andrea did experience, yes.
So do you think that could have been, well, related to the subject, you think any of it had any relations to alien possession or abduction at all?
Well, I'll tell you that quite often, I think more often than people realize, when there's a paranormal situation, quite often there is UFOlogy, UFO activity is going on, maybe very subtle, but quite often UFO activity is going on, and also cryptids.
Yeah.
Cryptids get involved.
As far as my perspective, anything extraneous like cryptids or UFOs, not of which I'm aware. We were only concentrating on the house and the presence or presences in the house. I don't know. I mean, there's a bigger picture, I'm sure,
Yeah.
but I didn't experience anything like that.
And I haven't been
That I
there
knew of,
since
yeah.
1973 either.
You haven't been there since
No, I
1973?
have not. So Patrick Connors asked, I heard that they have a film crew in for the seance. This is not the one that Nick Groff just did recently. Of course, that was fully filmed, and we had Nick Groff on after that show. And he had a little bit of explanation. You were involved with it on that Saturday.
Yes.
And you guys weren't necessarily there for the seance back in 1973. But Patrick asked, I heard they had a film crew from the seance. Did they actually get any footage on it before the thing
Does he
blew
mean
up?
the original?
The original seance, yeah. Did they filmed that? Didn't they not?
Well, they
I
had
don't think they
reporters
would.
there. They were documenting it, yes, but as far as I know, no footage of that exists.
No footage
I've
of
never
exists?
heard.
I doubt it. But somebody would have
Andrew's never
mentioned it.
mentioned any, so.
And that's one party to which Keith and I were not
But
invited.
like I said, the original interview with Roger and Carolyn Perrin by Ed and Lorraine, it does exist, yes.
Sarah Yusuf's been asking some good questions. Have you guys considered doing a new, fresh, unbiased investigation of the location, given that paranormal techniques and theories have changed since then? I know your techniques have changed. You don't ask questions anymore.
Right.
So would you guys be ever interested in performing? I know it's kind of hard because you're kind of subjective already to everything that's happened. And we're human, so you can't sometimes take that out. You really want to.
Mm-hmm.
But would you guys want to ever do something like that?
Now suggested.
Yeah.
I mean, I participated in other people's investigations. There are groups that have come in, and they've specifically requested me to be there.
You guys were
So
on
numerous
Ghost
times.
Adventures, the Halloween special.
Yeah,
were you
and the
not?
premise of that episode, the Halloween 2019 episode of Ghost Adventures, actually showcased Keith and myself, and I became a major part of that investigation. They were trying to replicate our original investigation. That was the whole premise
It's
there.
funny, Elise Carlson and David Grist were out in the rain waiting for us. And
What a night.
I don't know how many times they got
When they were
baptized,
filming that,
torrential
torrential
rainstorm,
rain.
lightning. You couldn't
Elise
have
and
asked for
Dave
better
running
special effects.
Oh yeah, that lightning's all genuine. You see in the windows.
Yeah.
That was was a good episode.
It's no
It was a good investigation.
No Sarah Yusuf question. I'll answer this first because I've heard it from you guys, but kind of more your perspective, and so as well as yours. But given all the investigations that have occurred at the property since then, as new data emerges, how has the theories of the hauntings changed? I would say that I agree with Carl. I think it is dependent, and most hauntings are like this. I think we kind of get away from the etymology of what haunting is.
Mhm.
And I do believe that the house is the reactance of individuals, regardless
A
of your
reverberation of the past.
reverberation of what you come in kind of wanting, what you're there for.
Yeah.
So have theories in your minds changed at all?
Yeah, well, in our minds, I think people are not so willing to accept that it's just the ghost of the past,
Yeah.
like people who lived and died there or around there that are haunting. I think people want to know what prevalent conditions generate that haunting, you know. Was there some tragedy that was not recorded? Probably not.
Oh, there's
I
a
mean,
lot.
is it land
Sure,
conditions?
things we don't know
Is it a
about.
high quartz contents? Is it radon? And what's fueling this haunting, this continual haunting? Why is it more severe sometimes than others? I think people are looking for those causes rather than what personality is haunting the house.
I'm sorry to do this, guys, but Sarah's been asking all the great questions. I don't really see many other questions. Sarah asked, would you guys consider the house adequate in use of training paranormal investigators?
Yes, I think it's been doing that. I think with the succession of paranormal groups, teams that have been coming in from different areas of the country, you know, the gracious Corey and Jen Heinzen, for many people. I mean, there is a fee for the investigations that helps them pay their mortgage and keep the house. But I think that's been happening. I think it's become like a school for the paranormal because people can set their own standards of investigation, employ their own methodology within real reason, and see what results they obtain from something that's been pretty much authenticated as being a haunted house. Yeah, I think it is. And as far as setting up classes there, I could foresee something like that.
And as close as you can possibly get, I guess, to the Warrens being back there on October 19th of this year, Tony Spera and NESPR, which was Ed and Lorraine's organization, they came and did a live investigation. They broadcast live. And, you know, I would say Tony was very respectful. He was very truthful about the history and how the Warrens' involvement. He talked about the seance and actually how it ended, and not on a good note. But he conducted it very respectfully, he and his team members.
So, this is not necessarily anything to do with it, but Cindy Carter McIntyre. Who do I contact in Billings, Montana for help with an evil spirit? One of us three. You can reach demonology.org or what's your website?
Nearparanormal.com.
We can try to put you in touch with a team, a reputable team, if we locate
And we
one.
do network, of course.
Yes.
We do always network.
But if we would need travel expense, but
Or something, yeah, or we can consult over the phone.
Yeah.
And maybe we can even give you great advice, and hopefully that will work as
Yes.
well, depending on what you're dealing with.
Yeah, consultations can be very effective.
That's
over the phone.
very much so.
or at least provide us with sandwiches if we come out
Yeah.
there or something. You know, we got to be fed.
Sarah Youssef again. Currently, is the house pretty active? I definitely say so.
Yes.
I never really had anything really dramatic happen. Like, of course, when you're in the house, you can feel the atmospheric change. You can feel that within yourself.
Sometimes something comes into a room and you
definitely.
sense it.
And noises. But you also got to remember the house is 238 years old, right? Or almost 283 years. Sorry.
103,
So it's almost 300 years
Pushing
old.
300.
There's a lot of things that could be happening, like the wood warping, like
yeah.
just settling of the house, like natural things that could take place that could make you conceive.
You must take all these things into consideration.
You do.
And
But things
create a big
do
mosaic
things still occur, and it's pretty active.
that are paranormal. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
they do.
How about you, Keith? When you were there, did you say that as well?
Yes, yeah. There's always something happening there, and again, it depends who walks in and who's there. Some people it will kind of likes the vibration, or it doesn't.
When the
like
paranormal
vibration.
teams come, I don't think it's of the magnitude, the paranormal activities of the magnitude where it's going to drive people out of the house.
Yeah.
But they're
We know
going to
what's
be
happening.
leaving at 8 or 9 o'clock the next morning anyway,
Yeah.
so they can endure that. You know?
So I want to ask this question because in the movie, Ed Warren performs an exorcism as a person that's been
Very
ordained
dramatic,
a Catholic
yeah.
deacon.
Yes.
So I laughed to this question. How many, and I'll let you guys answer this. How many different ways can an exorcism can be performed, and what is a wrong way it can be done?
Well,
Performing it when you're a layperson at the end of the Conjuring movie. Okay, I get it. He was trying to save the day.
The priest was caught in traffic.
You
know. Oh yeah. Well, what really happened was ill-advised because it was an experiment. It was trying to get to the bottom, but that's the way they had it. I think the Warrens intended to do good and generally wanted to help this family. It just didn't end well. But because things went as not predicted.
Exactly. Being of the Christian faith, I of course believe that anyone can call upon the protection of Jesus and have that protection.
Definitely.
It doesn't mean you have to, I'm going to drive everything out
expel,
of here.
yeah.
Right,
yeah.
Not expel. In fact, the entity that's there now does take exception when somebody says, mentions expelling and everything. It will take exception to that, which will come out in EVP sometimes.
Yes, the Heinzes don't want to get rid of the influence there. Why would they? It's not hurting them.
No.
So, yeah, there are no ways you can bungle it. Just haphazardly challenging the entity.
Well,
you might nullify it.
A baptism is a form of exorcism.
It is.
Yes,
it is.
It very much sounds in the liturgy.
It is the most important. It is the most
Yeah.
important sacrament. It's one of the most important sacraments. Yeah.
In fact, a priest that Ed Moraine worked in with the Annabelle case, the true Annabelle case, and a priest Carl and I worked with, they didn't have any expulsion for the demonics in their liturgy, so they don't have the ritual Romanum or anything. But they both Episcopalian priests did use a baptism rite.
Yeah, it works. Hey, well, in the Roman Ritualis, why many people don't understand why a priest has to perform the exorcism is because Mass is said.
Yes.
At that point of exorcism, so that is one of the reasons that a priest performs an exorcism. So a lot of people don't realize that. But yeah, the baptism is a very important thing. Maybe Melissa asked, maybe you can bring Sandra to my house with you, Keith, next time you come do a session with me.
Oh, certainly. Certainly.
They say that now. Hope you mean it.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, let's get a few more questions in if people have them, and then we will sign off.
And keep in touch. If we can't get to your questions during the show, which many we can't.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, we'll correspond.
Field any questions.
Oh, right here. This is actually a good question. What happened to the? I'm assuming she means the parent family. What happened to the family now? Do they experience any activity to this day?
That's very interesting because yes, they do. And that's another thing as far as showing respect to the situation. If you're in a house or a house like that or the Conjuring House itself, they were followed and they do experience activity from that house to this day. All the parents, sisters do. And I would say Roger does not, except when he's actually in the house. And of course, they lost the youngest sister, unfortunately, some years ago. But yeah,
just a few years ago.
I know Nancy does, and especially Carolyn. She'll be out gardening. So, they're up their old tricks again. Something will happen, and Andrea too as
Definitely
well.
Andrea.
Yeah.
Do you think that's a resonance of their time in that house?
I think so because that's when it started for them, and they kind of left with them.
You think that instead of ramifications of that, do you think that maybe they allowed them? It's kind of like once you taste food, right?
Yeah.
You have that acute taste of that food. You know
Right.
what I mean?
Yeah.
So do you think maybe that being in that house kind of activated what people would call the sixth sense? Maybe they are more attuned to understanding spirits around them, and that's why they deal with the phenomenon?
Certainly, but I do think the spirits there did keep in touch.
Okay.
They keep in touch.
It's very interesting.
Yeah.
It's interesting that that could be possible. And
yeah.
No, Keith returned to that house. Well, actually, we did, I should say.
It does seem to
During the
recognize
anomalous research. You were on the stairwell. What was that EVP you captured? What did it say to you? Or say?
Which one?
The one that you were going up the stairwell and it kind of confirmed that they're still around.
Oh, yeah. Well, there were a few things, but it said that it's, not gotten rid of. It did say.
What did it say?
It said.
I can say what it said.
Yeah, say what it said.
It said, we're still here.
It said, we're not rid of, and it said, another time, the most recent one I captured, it said, won't go.
Won't go. So
Now, I don't know if
three
it's
different ways to
because
say that.
I was there, I was not telling it to go, but also could have been paraphrasing you during the Ghost Adventures episode where he was, kind of overtaken and saying won't go. I don't know what it meant by that.
That's what the house was saying to me at the time.
Lou asked, there are certain rituals that allow one to see vision quest. How do you feel about these practices?
What, seeing visions, like looking into
Yeah,
the past,
there are
reading?
supposedly certain rituals that allow you to have visions. You know, there was supposedly a vision that was involved with the Conjuring case, and with the cases that you guys brought in with Lorraine, she had this vision. Do you think that is a practice people do, that they seek out the visions? Do you think that should be something that they do?
Well, if somebody feels it's going to bother them afterwards, obviously they shouldn't do it. But I think the ritual is just it's an opening. It's a conduit for somebody's vision, reading into the past. The past is still with us in layers, in a sense. And it's an enabler. It's a factor that will allow the viewer to see, something from the past or something that other persons don't see. I don't see it as especially harmful.
How about you, Keith?
Well, I have two close friends that are evangelicals, but they started out being involved in the occult in one way or another, and they really, really got burned for it. And today they're devout Christians, and they actually do their deliverance ministries themselves in helping people who have been touched by the occult and everything. One's in Scotland, my friend Laura, and Dana in Florida, but they're both very, very touched by the parent. I think Laura got as far involved in the occult as you can be and still possibly get out of it again. But today she's a deliverance minister.
So we have 3 more questions that we'll answer, and then we'll get off. Jim Brown says, did investigating the house in 1973 and your experiences there get you interested in demonology?
Yeah, that was the start of it for me. Like malevolent forces are non-physical. Yeah, I think demonology found me, actually. I was alerted to this demonic case, that demonic case. And the first residential cases I mentioned, for Keith and me, was the parents' house. Well, I don't feel that was a demonic haunting. It got me more fascinated in that darker, more mysterious aspect. Yeah.
How about you, Keith?
I think the catalyst to me was I was always interested in it, but especially when I was 15 years old, when I was had experience with a demonic spirit in the house we grew up in. And so I was already...
Yeah, I believe that was demonic.
I was very, very familiar with demon. Not that I was an expert. I'm just saying I had been touched by it at that point. And so when we came to the parent household, I was that encouraged
invigorated you.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. And I always say that I believe there's demonic spirit there. That's my explanation.
Yeah. It's funny that question was asked towards you guys, but being a demonologist myself now and respected in that way as you guys are respected in that way. It's funny, actually, you guys kind of made me interested in demonology, knowing you guys, watching you guys in Ghost Hunters and knowing your backgrounds. So I guess it comes full swing, that case that we talked about today kind of was your first residential case, kind of got you into the route.
And then we want to keep investigating houses and that's trying to assist people, trying to get to the bottom of what was happening.
But it comes all full swing, so it's interesting.
That's a good point you bring up.
Tina Marie, what is your take on Nick Roth investigating spirits in the house? I feel it is disrespectful. What do you guys feel? Like, did you feel like his seance 47 years later was disrespectful, or was it insightful, or was it dangerous, to be honest?
All of the above. Nick had limited time there, and he wanted results. He wanted to do what he can, be effective in that time. So perhaps if he had been there longer, he could have eased into it. Did he jump on that situation? Yeah, to a degree. But again, he had that limited time to be there. I don't disagree with his approach. It's just another way of doing things. So no, not that bad.
How about you?
Well, it's like I wasn't involved in it, but I think it could be obviously potentially very, very dangerous. And I know some people really do want to conjure, so to speak. They want to, do the divination with seances and Ouija boards and everything. Not that I ever condone it, ever. But if people are going to do that, at least do a respectful closing at the end of it.
Yeah. Yes, always advise the closing. I'm a little more experimentative than Keith. I will try things like that. And I don't fear consequences. But I don't go about it especially haphazardly, except in the sense that we are dealing with the unknown. But I will also agree that whatever you open up, close it. Thank whatever force, with which you communed, say you are, we are done now.
Yeah.
You can recede, you can go back.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you might take that thing we call attachments.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we've both known that. All three of us have known
Yes,
that.
we do.
Yes.
Yes.
It does happen. sometimes.
I don't feel necessarily disrespectful. I definitely think I was shocked and surprised nobody has really necessarily tried to perform a seance in the same form of fashion that they did back in 1973. But as Keith says, and I'm experimental too in some form of fashion. I definitely think that I like to push the boundaries more than I should sometimes. But I also think, like Keith said, it is dangerous. You're playing with fire. You're playing with the things that you can't see, and you definitely got to be careful. So, was it disrespectful? I can't say that, but it was. It could be dangerous in many forms of fashion. But you put yourself at risk when you do those things, and the homeowners were allowance of it, and all the people participating understood what they were getting involved with. So, in that same form of fashion, to each their own, they did what they did. And like we said, we taught Carl and I with our show Do a Daemonologie on YouTube and Facebook and other platforms like Daemonologie.org. We actually talked to Nick a few nights after the live, and it was interesting. They definitely got some feedback and some data collected from that, and I found it interesting. We'll take one more question, and then we will head off into the sunset. Am I correct in my understanding that the Perrin family had no prior paranormal experiences prior to moving into the house? You may have said that and I missed it, which actually we didn't.
No, it's good. Thanks for brought that up. Yeah, that can't be that important.
Right. Yeah. I don't think they didn't have any really grand paranormal experiences. I mean, most people experience something here and there, but I don't think they ever experienced anything significant, except in retrospect. In retrospect, they can look back and see a number of coincidences and synchronicity, but only in retrospect. They didn't realize it at the time. The dog being named Bathsheba.
Yeah. Well, I don't think the parents jumped into a haunted situation that they lived this, normal, predictable life.
They weren't expecting that at all.
A haunted house. No, I think they had paranormal activity happening and leanings towards.
Right, but they certainly weren't expecting it when they came in there. They
weren't.
They saw a man standing there.
No.
Andrea came in. There's a man standing there. Why isn't he saying hello? She tried to be polite, and then he was gone.
Yeah.
That
another one of the sisters, Nancy, tried to talk to him, and he, gee, how rude. Who is this young guy? And
so I think they were kind of wading into paranormal experiences before their advent to moving into what's called the Conjuring House, and then it jumped into high gear once they were there.
Because
something altogether different.
Yeah, and they moved in during a snowstorm, and the previous owner went for a walk with Roger. He said one thing to him during that snowstorm: Roger, do yourself and your family a favor. Keep the lights on all night.
Yes, it's.
We don't know what that really meant.
Like coyotes or something like
that. or college kids or college.
But you have to remember, when he lived there, his wife had passed, and he secluded himself to one room.
Yeah,
He lived in one section. Yeah.
So, a shameless plug for all three of us. Carl and I more specifically work together with Duo Daemonologie, and you guys, of course, work together for many, many years together as brothers. What is the YouTube feed? Our YouTube feed is Duo Daemonologie.
Yeah.
You can find it at daemonologie.org/podcast. Or go to YouTube, Duo Daemonologie, DAEMONOLGIE, right?
The old-fashioned stuff.
So you can reach us that way, or Facebook, and that'll lead us to YouTube. But of course, this was a co-promotion today, and Keith actually has Ghost Are Near. How can people watch you on that? Because that's a show as well.
Yeah, so they can contact us nearparanormal.com, or our show is Ghost Are Near Show at youtube.com.
Yeah, there you go. And of course, once COVID's over, it is also publicly aired through television as well, correct?
Yes.
There are reruns.
It is now, of course, but we can't be in the studio.
Yeah, it's reruns. Right, yes. And that's public access.
Or on reruns and on location shoots.
Yeah.
Okay. Nothing wrong with reruns now, right?
There isn't.
They keep us going.
So, guys, if you have any questions, please contact us through those means, demonologie.org and yourparanormal.com. And of course, somebody did say that they would actually, and I think that we were going to have a second part about people's experiences with demons. And I think it was somebody that wanted, I think it was Sarah Yusuf actually, that wanted to hear your full experience at your house, which of course, not to shamelessly plug your house's
We're beyond shame.
experience,
You can plug anything.
but you guys want to give the episode that your house was on.
Oh, that, yeah. What our story was told. I mean, well, I've done on a
Yeah.
number of those, paranormal themed reality shows. There was an episode that was devoted to telling our story of growing up in a house in the country, North Situate, Rhode Island.
Very well done.
Yeah, I was happy with it. It is on the series that's now in hiatus, but it was on a haunting. It was then on the Learning Channel, but it's principally shown on the Travel Channel now. And the title of the episode is Dangerous Games. So a haunting, dangerous games, and it talks about 3 teenagers being raised in a house in North Situate, and the house turns out to be haunted. More so after they start playing with a Ouija board, hence the title Dangerous Games.
So, guys, thank you for telling your story. I
My
know
pleasure. Yeah,
we could have
Having us. Yeah.
we definitely could have got well more in depth with every little minute detail, but
we went over our time as it is.
I can only imagine how long that show would have been.
Yeah.
But of course, we'll have to have Keith back on again. This is the second time we've had Keith involved in some sort of co-promotion.
It's always a pleasure.
And I think the third time we definitely will talk about your house experience in depth. And
we can just show that episode.
well, we can
No, a clip from it, maybe.
But our podcast was going to do a part 2
Yeah.
about what it is like to deal with the demon, and I think it would be imperative, important
Perhaps
to
we can do that very soon.
very soon and talk about your experiences.
We could talk about my sister's experience too, because she was as much a part of it.
Yeah, very much so. So, guys, look forward to that. That's something we most likely will do because there is interest. There was people asking. But if not, you can go watch Dangerous Games, the rerun on YouTube, probably. Haunting.
It's available usually.
So,
YouTube can fluctuate, but it's usually available.
but definitely, guys, have a great night. Thank you guys for everything. You guys are legends, and you guys need to be respected for being
Thank you.
involved.
Thank you very much.
So, thank you for for telling your story, and I loved hearing it for the millionth time.
Yeah, we'll tell you again.
You
I
will.
might have left something out.
You probably did. All right, guys, have a great night. Thank you.
Good night.